Kyle Smith mentioned.
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith. And if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links below. But for today, my friends, my brothers and sisters, from other sisters and misters, my guest today is Andrew White, who is a coach for nerd fitness coaching, cyclist, obstacle course racer, dislocated his shoulder in November, bouncing back from that, and he lives in a 30-foot RV travel trailer. So using space for fitness challenges is pretty freaking fun. And Andrew, my man, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. So tell us a story about you. What is it that you do?
Gosh, I mean, we could start with the most recent story. It's the most flashy and fun. So the dislocated shoulder, we had just moved up here to the Pacific Northwest, and I was on my second mountain biking trip with actually the guy who sold us this RV. And he's a great dude, great mountain biker. So he takes us out. It's day 10 of us living out here. And I'm biking through this beautiful, we're on Galbraith Mountain out in Washington State. And I'm biking, we go across this bridge, and it's just this beautiful flat bridge. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take an opportunity and just be really present. This is beautiful. Look at this forest, this is incredible. And the handlebar catches the bridge, and I get spooked and I overcorrect. And I just yeeted myself off like a 6-foot high bridge and dislocated my shoulder on day 10 of living out here in Washington. So an immediate pivot was needed when we moved. Yeah. It was fun. It was fun.
That's amazing. Well, at least I'm sure the view is good. So how is it? So how is it what you do impacts other people's lives?
Yeah. So I do coaching with nerd fitness, as you mentioned. And what's really cool about that is we work with people all over the world, and we really emphasize meeting each client where they are at with that customizable approach. So like my roster in particular, I have anywhere from Ironman triathletes to people who are just beginning and they're intimidated by the gym. And so it's an opportunity to really meet them where they are and say, okay, what are our goals? How can we really make sure that we're taking the most efficient steps possible to kind of meet that, I call it like the Venn diagram sweet spot of just challenging enough to draw us forward and really feel rewarding, and being easy enough that we can approach it every day or more often than not, right? Because if it's too far on either side of that spectrum, it's too hard, we can't approach it. It's too easy, it doesn't feel like anything. And so there's no reason to pursue it, because like it's just a redundancy, you know? So finding that sweet spot is really where the impact comes from.
Beautiful. Where do you think? I love that approach. I think it's much more manageable. It's more sustainable. It's more realistic. It definitely prevents going hard and then just experiencing burnout from that part. So how is it that you go about finding that Goldilocks zone? Because it's so subjective.
A lot of questions, which I'm sure that if any of my clients are watching this, they're like, yeah, he asks a lot of questions. But it's truly going in with that. There's a word that I'm trying to think of, but like that mentality of curiosity, of really seeing like, okay, what resonates to you? What resonates with you about this goal? If you want to do a couch to 5K, okay, why? Why are we doing that? What's the pursuit? Do you actually even like running? If not, like if you hate running, you're like, well, I want to lose weight. Like, okay, so you don't want to do a 5K. You want to lose weight. Let's talk about methods there that you might get farther than 14 days through, and really maybe actually even, God forbid, enjoy it. Like, so shocker, you can enjoy working out, guys. I think I answered the question, but
yeah, that was good.
I don't know. Yeah.
What kind of questions do you go, or what? No, let's go with more fun on that one.
Okay.
What are some of the harder questions you ask yourself that other people can also adopt? But I feel like from your perspective, for your personal perspective.
Like in my own fitness stuff or in my coaching?
Ooh, that's also a good one. Let's go with a personal component. So let's go with yourself for sure. But how is it,
Okay.
or what questions do you ask yourself to dial things in? Right.
Yeah.
And then what questions have you found, or what common questions have you found to have the biggest um, impact on your clients? And so like, if someone's listening, they could think, oh, I think I'll ask myself that question.
hmm Why do I care? Is a big one of just over the last few years uh, with purposely choosing several moves. Um, it There was enough disjointedness in our routine that to keep momentum going on something, I had to really suss out, like, why do I care about going to the gym? Am I, when I was training for Worlds, I was going to the gym because it gave me the opportunity to really work on grip strength and do a whole bunch of single leg stuff that I couldn't necessarily do at home at the RV. Like I had a good setup at the RV, but like the gym had its advantages. So about 4 months prior to the race, we chose to do that. So I cared about going to the gym. After Worlds came through, which we could talk about outcome process and identity goals later, but the outcome was passed, right? Yeah, dropping nuggets already. So when we look at that process or that idea that I had already surpassed an outcome, I didn't have anything to care about. So I had to really start integrating of, okay, why do I care about my fitness right now, and what does that look like? So for a little while, it was just going for walks. Like I just walked because I enjoyed being out, and that was the avenue that I was going for. So over the last couple of years, what has really kind of come to the surface with that is I care less about what I do in the gym. It's about what I do if I go to the gym, if I do a weight workout. It's about what that unlocks for me as a cyclist, as an obstacle course racer, as just the ability to be invited to go do things and just be like, yeah, I can probably swing that. Even just this last weekend, I'm training for a 50-mile bike ride at the end of this month, and the opportunity came up to join a group ride for, it was like 49 miles, something like that yesterday. And to that point, the longest that I've ever ridden was 43 miles 2.5 years ago. But over the course of this last like month and a half, I think I've gotten up to 30, 31, something like that. And so like I can either I think I can do this. If I fail miserably, my wife's aunt lives over there, and I'll call her and she can pick me up. And it went well because I've just been emphasizing on the what do I care about right now, and it's that training to be able to do the things that excite me outside of the gym. So yeah, why do I care? I think it'd be a big question.
I think that's an awesome takeaway right off the hop. So you gotta come up
Credit.
with some more. You gotta come up with some more knowledge bombs, my man. But I love, my favorite takeaway out of that is you're partaking in going to the gym, partaking in physical activity to make the rest of your life better. When
Mm,
I think that people have the frame of mind where they're only focusing on the gym, and the gym is there to get a particular result without thinking about how it ripples out into the rest of our life. Uh,
yeah.
do you find that your clients experience that, where there's that frame of mind, that shift that has to, or not has to happen, but is in their best interest to have happen?
Yeah, yeah, we call them non-scale victories, where they often come from like functional fitness, little trophies, not like an actual little trophy, but like that moment where you're like, holy crap, I just did that thing. I recently had a client that I think they had like a couple of nieces or nephews come and hang out with them, and they realized that like, wow, I'm spending a lot of time like playing in a squat. I'm playing on the ground, I'm crawling, I'm on my knees a lot. And a year ago, that would have broken me. But here we are, a few months into this program that we're focusing on these things that, yes, are being implemented through the gym, but they've increased that ability to just have fun with the people that mean so much to me, and to demonstrate that like active adult thing to the upcoming generation of kids. So yeah, like that realization and that paradigm shift of like, life isn't attached to a barbell. Like it's out and about. So I mean, unless you're a professional bodybuilder, in which case you're not on my roster, but that's okay.
That is totally fair. So what would be some examples of non-scale victories? Like maybe, yeah, what are some examples of that people could take away from this conversation?
Yeah. Some non-scale victories would be things like, being able to go up the stairs of your house or at work and not feeling out of breath. I had a client recently that said they wanted to work on when they have to walk to meetings, they don't want to have to stand outside of a door and catch their breath before they go in. So basically any essence of progression that is not attached to a stepping on of a scale. You could potentially place it on physique, but then that becomes like scale adjacent. But ultimately anything that can be measured cognitively, emotionally, are going to be those great non-scale victories.
That's pretty cool. So what do I need to understand about younger Andrew to understand the person in front of me today?
Ooh, gosh. He's had a lot of injuries. Jokes aside, that has been a major factor. I got into fitness because I was going through rotator cuff surgery rehab from baseball. And so that drew me to athletic training and rehabilitation. And so what I've had to focus on a lot in my own personal journey is a lot of respawning or restarting on my fitness journey, right? Where, you have an injury, or even you move and your environment changes and you have to respawn your approach. So that's been something that has really formed who I am as a person and a coach now. I think it's helped me become more empathetic and be able to, I tell my clients a lot that I think that there are very few excuses in the world. And more often than not, I think we label it as, it's just an excuse, but really like there's context around that friction point, and being able to acknowledge that like, my kids kept me up all night. That's just an excuse. Like, no, you're tired. You're physically tired because you got kids. So how do we adjust the approach? It's about the action that follows that perceived excuse, what I would call just context of your life. And we say, okay, if we are prepared for that kind of thing, then we can have a plan going into it. Of if you have kids, you can assume that you're not going to get perfect sleep every night. So what are we going to do if that happens? Are we just going to do a 90-second workout and call it good and keep our momentum going? Or are we going to have an all or nothing approach and say, well, I have to do an hour-and-a-half workout that smashes my, neuromuscular system and just absolutely obliterates me mentally for work? Like, okay, is that the smart choice? Or can we dial? Right. So through my own rehabilitation of injury and being able to ask that why do I care question and say, what are we really pushing towards? That's really formed me.
That's pretty cool. This is kind of a neat one. I'm gonna word it in the way that I perceive it. So maybe if you have a different word, then definitely go for it. Okay. So let's say with the all or nothing mindset, right? I've definitely been there many a times, my man. Yeah. I've been there many a times. And then it's like, I'm going to set these unrealistic expectations and standard to myself. And then I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to inevitably fail. And then I'm going to beat myself up. And then I'm going to continue to make unrealistic expectations and standards of myself with my all or nothing mindset. And then we're really going to see how things go. Weird.
That's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah. Oh, strange. I thought there was going to be a different outcome by repeating the same process. And
all or nothing is sexy. All or nothing is sexy.
All or nothing is sexy.
I
completely agree. Yeah. It's like, well, if you can't go all in, blah, blah, blah. No. There's moderation. Right. There's Goldilocks zones. There's about decreasing resistance, there's a lot of ways to go about that. So let's say, for example, client has absolute expectations of themselves. They inevitably fail. They find themselves in a sewer cycle. Do you have a tip or a trick or a paradigm shift to allow the person to give themselves the grace of that experience? Like, give yourself some grace. It's something like that.
Yeah. The giving of grace is a big point. It can be hard to do, especially in that like first 24 hours, whether it's a literal 24 hours or just a perceived, week post your go all in experiment. But ultimately, like I've already put the word in there, view it as an experiment. You tried XYZ factors and yielded this result. What does that mean? What if we change one of those factors? What if it truly just being able to step back and go, what have we learned? What can we change? And the experimental mindset can be frustrating in itself because it takes a lot of iterations. I joke all the time that like I trained for worlds in 5 different ways before I finally found the solution that worked. And I spent a lot of money and a lot of time in doing that. So if you can do this in a free way, do that. But ultimately, like truly being able to step back, analyze it, ask people around you. If you have a coach at your disposal, ask them, like, what of this experiment stands out to you? If you don't, journal it, write it down, write down what you were doing as much as you can going through a process so that you can go back and look at your data. But truly trying to step back and take an objective look at it and say, okay, I can give myself some grace to actually analyze why this failed. I thought it was going to work. I was really motivated. What happened? Right. Mm-hmm. And I listened to, I think it was you and Sean's conversation. Nice. And the nugget about motivation being the unreliable friend.
Yeah.
There's a brain connection here because I'm on a walk listening to you guys chat, and I just wish that I had a beer the whole time with you guys. And I'm like, oh my God, I say that all the time. So we got the brain juju.
The frequency is vibing. The frequency is there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're tuned in.
It's so interesting. I started listening to it again today, and I talk about it on the podcast often. And it's Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, the Art of Being, or something like that. It's really freaking good. And he refers to something. He refers. So some of us believe in a God, some of us believe the universe, some of us believe in whatever. He refers to it as the source, where it's the creative source, where the ideas come from, because there's ideas that happen in our mind and then we create it into reality, like our phones. Basically, everything that we're using to communicate at this moment was created in the mind. And it is through the discomfort that we curate curiosity. How have you found, because when Andrew here is referring to worlds, he's talking about the world's toughest mudder that we did in 2016, which I've definitely talked about on this podcast many, many a times. And it's a 24-hour race. It sucks. Pretty much increases a lot of discomfort. Have you found that discomfort has brought more curiosity? Because the world's toughest mudder is not the first discomfort that you've experienced. So I'm wondering if you can see a difference between when you have a quote unquote easy life compared to when you are pursuing discomfort.
Yeah. Yes and no. There's an element of, seeking discomfort where you like in race, the discomfort of, okay, if I can do this, what else can I do? I feel like I had a clever answer for how it hasn't raised curiosity as well. But now I can't think of it. So we'll just gonna chalk that up to the old brain. But yeah, there's a you're right. There's that element of if I can do this, what else can I do? What else can I unlock? what like little hidden levels of myself, what cheat codes can I figure out. But a lot of it for me, when I was training for Worlds and implementing that discomfort, there was a known entity of like, okay, I'm only doing this in this interim of time. And so being able to kind of reason that with myself of, I'm doing this as a method of training. That's why I'm waking up at 4 a.m. and going swimming in the dark. I'm doing this as a method of training, which is why I'm doing hot, cold flash showers after a workout when I'd much rather just enjoy a warm shower. Like that kind of bargaining chip a little bit, so that it was less of a curiosity and more of an inoculation than just saying like, I have to do this thing because I'm working to do this other thing. So
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's pretty sweet. I like how you refer to cheat codes and skills and kind of like leveling up style. And that is I might get it right actually. And is the philosophy of solipsism, where it's the idea that we actually live in a virtual reality or a video game. And you are the RPG player and I am an RPG player, but we are also NPCs in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Do you have a philosophy, or perhaps that could be it, but do you have a philosophy that you draw your decision making from, how you live your life?
Maybe. The funny thing is, as I sit to think about this, I have this is on my work desk.
Do epic shit. I love it.
Do epic shit. I think ultimately I'm working to, the short answer is no. I don't have a definitive kind of like mantra type of mentality philosophy. Mostly I'm working to just ultimately move my body and do things that I enjoy and that allow me to do all the other things that I'm also wanting to do. I want to spend time with my wife. I want to read. I want to play Dungeons and Dragons with my family. I want to go for hours long bike rides to see beautiful parks. Being able to do all of these things means that I have to eat well, means I have to get sleep, means I have to take care of my body, means I have to be mindful about my time. I don't always succeed, but knowing that like those are the wheels that I'm trying to spin. That's what I'm going for. Those are the quests that I am pursuing. If we continue the simulation NPC RPG conversation.
I love it. Yeah. I honestly, I'm not sure if there is I'm not sure if there is proof or truth behind the idea of us living in a virtual reality. Sometimes it seems like we do, sometimes we don't. But one thing I found that's really interesting, going back to the Rick Rubin one, because it's going to be on the forefront of my mind, considering I was listening to it. But he talks about how we are the creatives of our life. Like we get to create the life that we get to exist, and we're all artists in a way. And something that he talks about that's very important in the first chapter, I suppose, in an audiobook, it's about 1 minute long, but he says somewhere in there to take the things that are useful and reject the things that are not useful. And I think tying back into what we were talking about with absolutes, where people only want to take on things that are either 100% right or 100% wrong without actually thinking of the parts that actually fit in the mold of what we want to accomplish. What are some narratives that you believed to be absolutes, and what is the experience or the moment that shifted that narrative?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's got some meat on it. Gosh. We'll go to commercial break as I just sit here and hem and haw for like 4 whole minutes.
Oh,
Um,
good. I can ponder it as well
I
for myself. That is a pretty
yeah,
decent question. I actually didn't even think of that.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I
Can
might
you say
have.
can you say it again?
So, what is a narrative that you previously believed to be an absolute? And what was
Yeah.
the experience or the moment that shifted that paradigm where you just realized that it was, I like to call it a non-functioning opinion.
Ooh,
Yeah, there's functioning opinions
non-functioning
and
opinion.
non-functioning opinions. So it's the
Nice.
opinions that are not fact, they're based in fantasy, they're not based in fact. And we can pick the opinions that produce progress.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm really big with my alliterations, man. Really
I
big.
love it.
It's just,
If it rhymes and if it's an alliteration, it makes me happy.
yeah, I'm a sucker for
Um,
alliterations. Helps me remember.
yeah, honestly, yeah, got to have those little, is it not monikers? Anyway, not important. I think it comes down to, for me, the injury respawns along the way have challenged those paradigms, have challenged those the non-functioning opinions of, like, well, yes, of course I have to do a hard workout every day. I'm doing CrossFit. Like, I was a CrossFit coach and loved CrossFit. I miss CrossFit. I miss that energy of the group. And I luckily was at a great gym. Shout out to CrossFit Flyover. That is unfortunately no mas, but we
R.I.P.
were in RIP, baby. It was great. It was a beautiful place. But it ultimately, it was a place that really crafted me as a coach, because we didn't do hard blitzing, puking workouts every day. Like, we took that progressive approach, that absolute idea, not absolute idea. We're not going to say an absolute in the question of absolute challenges, but that mentality of, we have to have variation, we have to have levels, because your body doesn't work in a 0 to 100 on off. There are so many spectrums within there. There's metabolic systems that trigger at different intensities, and so you should train at different intensities. And so, bringing it back to your actual question, when faced with an injury, whether it's when I was in an ankle boot or when I'm in an arm sling, I am limited in what I'm able to do. And so the challenge to my mentality, that perhaps has a little bit of a root in, like, overcoming that ableism of my own just bias, and being able to say, okay, what can I do to feel good? What can I do to take care of my body, the body that I can still move? Like, what can I do to still take care of my mind and my body in this space? And so each injury has presented its own little paradigm shift, as well as each failed attempt at worlds, failed in my own ambitions and perspectives, and being able to kind of shift that paradigm of, okay, if I want to run 50 miles at worlds, the year that I trained by just running, like, that was my worst performance. That's interesting. And so, like, that paradigm shift, because I mean, worlds is not a running event. Unless you were in the top 10, it's not a running event. Like, and Sean's probably listening, like, I mean, there's some, and there is, but you have to do so much more than running. You have to bulletproof your body in so many ways. And so, like I said, there were 5 different iterations of how I would train for this 24-hour obstacle course race, and only one of them worked. And so that paradigm shift in and of itself of being able to see what were what was it, the useful opinions and non-useful
Yeah,
opinions?
functioning and
Yeah,
non-functioning.
functioning and non-functioning opinions, and figuring out which of those they'll wear. Because I would have thought that all of them were functioning opinions, surely, but no,
Oh,
they are
that's
not.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, if you were to take a ballpark guess with injuries where you felt that discouragement, roughly, or discouragement from what you were incapable of doing rather than shifting to what you could do at that time, how many injuries do you think you really experienced that way? Ballpark.
Say it again.
How many injuries ish do you think you experienced in your life where you felt that discouragement at first, but then you had that paradigm shift towards doing what you could?
Okay. Okay. Um, 3. I would say the first kind of the injury, the rotator cuff surgery, um, high school athlete, being active all my years leading up to that. If my mom is watching this on Facebook, hello, Mom. I'll call you back in a little bit. But that I was a very grumpy teenager, just couch ridden, that probably could have gone for walks and been a lot happier. So future me would come back and say, hey, go for a walk. But that it also didn't help that I was watching the 2008 Olympics at the time. And so I'm just on the couch watching the pinnacle of athleticism and just being pissy that like I can't move. Can't being my own choice at that time. But then the dislocated shoulder being the more recent bookend, and just kind of that, just the rug out from underneath bummer of moving to one of the most beautiful spots in the country and then crashing your bike and not being able to go biking anymore. And then I would say the one where I kind of organically, without realizing it at the time, made the choice to acknowledge the paradigm shift was in college when I blew out my ankle and had just started the ultimate frisbee team at my college. And so we're getting ready for a tournament in March, and I blow out my ankle in December, January, or something like that. And so I basically had to step back and take on a non-playing role, and I had to be more organized, and I had to just focus on like, okay, I'm just gonna throw with people, and that's all that I can do, and that's fine. And just being able to still be present in that environment was a good paradigm shift in and of itself.
I had an original question. No, I can go. I'll double whammy this one. This will be a good one. The act of being present. How do you find yourself having to, or do you find yourself more so having to remind yourself to be present? How do you become present? Where do you find yourself with the most presence?
Yeah.
How is it that you're existing right now, like in this reality, I suppose?
Gosh, one day at a time. How to be present, if that's not the question of questions, though. I think for me, it has kind of started to come around to the idea of I can only plan so much, and my own plans are limited by what I know, which is not much in the grand scheme of things. And so being able to acknowledge that and just kind of focus on like, okay, I need to take care of what's here, what's in front of me, which to some extent is a burden of like, if I don't think about dinner and my wife's like, okay, what are we doing for dinner? I'm like, oh shit, I was too present and not thinking ahead, right? So being able to kind of acknowledge those misses and take them on the chin to a certain extent and learn from it. It's that idea of if every day is an experiment in and of itself, your actions have yielded a result. And so if we can be able to step back and, without overburdening and without over analyzing, be able to look back and say, oh crap, I have on my calendar right now, or on my just whiteboard, I have 9 things on my list to do. One of them is having a chat with you. So let's call it 8. But being able to look back and say, okay, these things that I want to tackle today, am I truly able to do all of them? That's my plan. Tonight, I'm going to be able to look back and say, okay, well, I had 8 things. I accomplished 4. Note to self, 8 might be too much in the future. What's 7? And, being able to be present in that moment while also being able to be retrospective, because being too prospective, without being the prospector from Toy Story, being able to look forward and project is only going to be as accurate as your ability to look back and figure out what worked.
Ooh, that was a really good answer. My favorite, yeah, that was a good mic drop one, man. That was a gooder. One of my favorite takeaways that you said out there that I'm just going to probably use as a little tweeter quote.
Get the tweeters.
Yeah, I like that. It's this is my takeaway from that little bit there or one of my favorites. Plans are limited to what we know. Many people don't know that much. I think that's it. It's true, man. Because now that you're thinking about it, it's like, oh shit, yeah, we only plan things based off of the knowledge that we know, but we have unlimited knowledge at our fingertips, and it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness in that case.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
There was a really great, I think it was just from a few days ago, but the head of Nerd Fitness, Steve, he posted a reaction to another Instagram reel or TikTok video, what have you, to another piece. And the one that he was reacting to is basically this mentality of the creator was saying something to the effect of like, my useful knowledge thing for you today is it's not that hard to get started. And Steve responded to it with like, you're right. It's not that hard to run a marathon. You do one step at a time. You're right. It's not hard to do these things. And I'm gonna butcher the real analysis of it, but essentially it came down to it's not the knowledge of the thing. Like if you go online right now and Google marathon plans, there's going to be umpteen options that you can choose from. And yes, ultimately, if you continue to step forward for 26.2 miles, you will have covered a marathon. But the actions that you take to actually do that are going to be limited to what you know and what you can actually take action upon. And it's not easy. It's not hard to get started, but it is challenging to follow through on. And it can be challenging for reasons that you are not aware of quite yet. And so sometimes that's where that ability to be present and acknowledge they're like, okay, I've chosen this thing. I'm not married to it though. I'm not sworn to it. I didn't tattoo it on my body. If you did tattoo it on your body, there's laser removal. But being able to say, I'm going to try this thing and see where it takes me. It might work. Congratulations. You've learned something. It might not work. Congratulations. You've learned something. And now you know more for the next plan that you make.
So it's just,
I think that was relevant.
I think, that was fantastic. It's taking the information from previous experiments and applying it to the future experiments until you find the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that sweet spot will probably change. That sweet spot will probably change.
That's true.
You might get injured. You might get married. You might get divorced, kid. It might get better. It might get worse. So just being able to, and that's that sweet spot of being able to be present and enjoy that fact that like it's working right now. Yay, cool. What am I going to do if it stops to not work? It stops to not work. If it starts to not work, what can I have kind of in my back pocket and have as an anchor or a bedrock that I can return to while I figure out that next thing. And like for me, that's become walking, which is funny that like as a runner, once I gained the ability to run, which was as a youth, why would I walk? Like I can run. There wasn't value to walking to me, but walking has become one of the most valuable things that I do because it's more often than not, it's my time, which is lovely. And when I can walk with Sarah, I love it. It's fantastic. But when I'm walking by myself, I think, I listen to D&D podcasts, I listen to the music that I want to listen to, and it's my time and I can do whatever I want with it. And that's really, really nice. It's like walking's the new bedrock for me.
I'm definitely on the same. Walking is a foundational activity of my day-to-day existence. Like I know that walking is that, and I don't drive. I don't have a car. So walking is my main mode of transportation and everything's close by. So I don't need any of those things. But nonetheless, walking is still such a huge bedrock to my day-to-day activities. And for the exact same reasons too, man, it's a moment to ponder existence and life, and I view it as a way of understanding myself, where let's say I've yeah, okay. So let's say I'm thinking of what are these non-functioning opinions that I am holding on to that are
Yeah.
preventing me from giving myself permission to make progress into the future. A lot of my alliterations revolve around P's. I just realized that, whereas past, present, progress, prevention, permission. Geez. But
Freud would have just a heyday.
oh yeah. You'd be like, oh yeah. Just like so pumped. But
It's happening.
it is, yes. But what was it? So I think that walking is the time where I get to challenge my non-functioning opinions and really just, or listening to an audiobook or music or something like that. But I think it really sets the pace, whether it's in the afternoon, whether it's in the morning. I think there is a baseline, or not baseline, but there is a sense of equilibrium. There we go. Where you're equaling things out, where things are not too crazy, not that things are too little or mellow. It's not over the top activity, but it's just enough activity where you get to be. And and the thing that's like kind of cool. This is just a fun nerdy fact, because I definitely realize that I'm sounding a little bit more on the woo side of things for this one. But
No.
from like a neurology standpoint, when you're going walking, yeah, bilateral stimulation. So the creative side and the logical side of your brain is working together. And then that helps our consciousness in the middle come up with new ways to solve problems. It gives us that opportunity for our brains to breathe, kind of thing, because we're just getting so much information and input drilled into us over and over and over again. And I think that walking, especially if I do walk with my phone just because it counts my steps, but outside of that, I just won't have any earbuds in or anything like that. And I'll just be like thinking. And even if it was my darkest times too, and it's not all honky dory like sunshine and rainbows, even when it was the moments of the darkest times, that's when I really start self-coaching, where I'm coaching myself through how to like overcome it. Or actually, there's only 5, I call it the 5 threads of time that we can choose from. Yeah, I have a weird brain way of, it's my mental method. That's just what I title them. I didn't create these. This was something I took from Dr. Trevor Cashy Nutrition. And it's the five choices that we can never make in any situation, starting from smart decisions. It's a spectrum of smart decisions to dumb decisions. And the smart decision is resolution. How can we resolve it? Second best decision is how do we reframe it? How can we tolerate it? Do we ignore it? Do we aggravate it? So if I'm going for a walk and I'm experiencing something, then I ask myself, okay, which thread of time, which quest do I want to take part in? These are the 5 paths that I can choose from. What are the consequences in each of those 5? So that way I get like an objective, big picture view of the trajectory of each of those points, and that helps me so much when I'm walking. And it's fun. Like it is a fun process to go walking and just think about your shit, rather than be scared of it and be fearful of it. Address it
and be able to kind of delve into that that area, and then if you have somebody to come back to and be like, I thought of this thing, what's the outside perspective of this thing? Can you kind of troubleshoot that with me a little bit? Because there have been times when I go for walks and I come back with ideas. My wife's like, no, that's not a good idea. And I'm like, okay, cool. But you would be really interested, if you haven't read it yet. There's a book called The Art of the Impossible, or maybe just Art of Impossible, by Stephen Kotler. And Stephen Kotler talks a lot about the flow state. And one of the things that he talks about is the flow state originating from surfing, and from that like indigenous surfing. And it neurologically, it comes from that standpoint of when you're surfing, and not just necessarily when you're paddling, but like when you're actually surfing, there's just enough stimulation that you have to be entirely present in that moment. You can't be thinking about a meeting later because the wave's going to rock you. You can't be thinking about, did I paddle out correctly? Because the wave's going to rock you. And so it's just challenging enough to arouse your mental state to the present without being overly challenged. It's that Goldilocks sweet spot. And so that's where the flow lives. And so he talks in the book about ways to kind of, if you aren't able to surf, to kind of self-stimulate that flow environment. And one of the things that he talks about is a shower. Because in the shower, you have enough physical stimulation that your body is able to kind of shed that, like, all the other stressors of the moment, and just kind of be, your body just kind of quiets its own noise a little bit. And so that allows your brain, that's why you have shower thoughts, essentially, because your mental state is able to just kind of shed the dandruff and say, like, okay, what's going on? That little thing that I thought about earlier, it's back. I have a cool thought about that. Okay, that's interesting. Holy cow, cool. And like that just like self-imposed flow state of a shower can be really, really cool. So he talks about, like, when he's writing a book, sometimes what he'll do is he'll just write down a whole bunch of things and then go take a shower to just kind of like shed that physical stressor of it. It's really interesting.
I like that you said that self-imposed flow state. That's good, because I think a lot of people think, oh, flow state, I have to go jump off a bridge, or they think of like an extreme sports example, right? But
Yeah.
self-imposed flow state can be as simple as going into the shower. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a PT, his name's James Smith. And I like the way he's nonchalant kind of talks. I just resonate really well with it. And he was talking about him writing his book. He has like 3 books, but he was writing his book, and he talks about in the book how when he couldn't think of ideas, he would just go into his shower, and he has a waterproof case. So he would take his shower, he would take his phone with him, and then just like stand in the shower and then just do. So he said that he's done multiple showers in a day, but that's where he got a majority of his productive deep work done.
Or water bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn, right? Is it a good book?
Yeah, exactly.
This book better pay for my heating.
Yeah, this book better save the whales, or something like that.
The absolute like environmental full circle of I'm writing a book about like being carbon neutral in the shower
while printing it on paper.
Audiobook only.
Yeah, audiobook.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
That's pretty funny. That's interesting. Great. So no, we already went through that one. That's totally legit. So what are some cheat codes, skills that you think is just easy to implement for folks, just from for a fun question?
Yeah. Think ahead when you have time. In an opportunity where, maybe you're really stressed out today. Today's not the day. But like the next opportunity that you get to kind of think ahead of, okay, what are, we call them at Nerd Fitness, we call them the pressure gauges on a red, orange, yellow, and green day in terms of stress and time availability. What are the actions that I can take to feel my best, to train towards my goal, to fulfill this action, blah, 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 blah. And if green is no stress, maximum adherence to the plan, what is yellow? What is orange? What is red? And just predetermining what those things are to set up future you for success. If you can back to the future, set yourself up as much as you can, that's going to be one of the best things that you can do. So that in that opportunity, you can both be present and you can make a plan off of what you know without, because then that next opportunity that you have, that you come up to, that you're going to be stressed, you're going to be tired, you're going to be exhausted, whatever it is. If you don't have a plan for that time, whether the plan works or not, like if you go into it and you don't have a plan, no action's probably going to happen. It's going to be too overwhelming in the midst of all that stress to be like, well, gosh, what's the least that I can do today? The least that you can do is going to be nothing. And that's the action that's going to be taken. Your brain is incredibly energy efficient and it will always take the easiest path out. 99 times out of 97, that's the way your brain's going to work because that's how you survive. So if you can go into it ahead of time prepared and say, okay, I have this thing that I didn't do and then bury in my phone, like print it out, save the screenshot, put it on your fridge, whatever it is, make it obvious and say, okay, I'm crazy stressed. I determined previously that going for just a 3-minute walk around my driveway is sufficient. And I'm going to take that action today. And then I'm going to move on. I'm going to expect nothing more. If anything else happens, great. It's a bonus. It's an absolute bonus XP moment. You don't have to limit yourself, but knowing what the minimum is, that's the key.
That's legit. I actually had like go ahead.
I was going to say another coach, Coach Rebecca of Nerd Fitness, would call them BAMs, bare ass minimum. What's the bare ass minimum that you're willing to do on the worst of days?
I'm going to write that one down. Well, what's been awesome about this podcast? I've just been learning from everyone that's on it, and Peeps have just been like putting little knowledge bombs, and I think I've just been getting a whole bunch of little like lessons and just information from people. Bare minimum. That's what you said.
Like don't limit yourself to only what you know. Truly, there are experts in this field. There are peer-to-peer experts in every field that you can lean to or like lean into, that you can rely upon, to the point where like you can create your own plans and then cross-check them against who you feel to be an expert, or who is just straight up determined to be an expert. Which is not to say that I'm an expert by any means. But for anybody listening, like, wow, I roll. But like truly, it's that opportunity to almost bridge that gap between what you know and what I know. We find commonalities. We find things that you know that I don't, that I know that you don't, or just things that you haven't heard. Even just like when somebody's being coached on a squat, there's different cues that each coach is going to use, and different cues will resonate for different people. So being able to diversify those inputs, again, without hopefully overwhelming you, you're going to find something that resonates. That will not happen if we only stay within the bubble of what we know to be true. Moral of the story, go to your library.
Library? What's a library? We're in 2023, man. There's the internet.
I love my library.
That's fair.
I have way too many library books right now. I have 4 books from the library at the moment.
That's amazing. You know, it actually makes sense though. It makes sense to actually go get a book rather than purchasing them, because I have a bunch of books, but I also like paperback. That's so funny.
I don't have shelves.
Oh yeah,
I don't
that's
have
true. You got to modify.
Exactly.
Nice. So what's so given the activities that you do, given what you're doing, given how you experience life, it seems to be very informative and intentional, which is pretty cool. So I imagine that there is probably consistencies or strategies that you pull from to get into certain states. So what's a personal practice you have that gets you into a certain state? And you can say what the state is, and then what the practice is, and the purpose of the state change.
Yeah. Music's a big cue for me. You know, whether it's if I'm going through messages from clients during work, I'll typically listen to the same music. Florence and the Machine is a big one. And ultimately it comes down to like the stuff that I know the words of, so it doesn't draw me out of that state. And then when I'm going into workout programming and I'm building things, there's a different playlist for that. It's usually like the same 2 artists almost every time. Shout out to The Warning, just an incredible band, or Evanescence. And then the consistency of and it's based off of previous experimentation. I know that I hate morning workouts. And so could it be more convenient for me to wake up and do a bike ride or a workout and then go to work? Maybe, but I know that it's not going to happen. I've tried through multiple iterations, and the most successful I was when I was waking up to swim for Worlds. And so, you know, just kind of beginning that transition of, usually my day flow will go messaging clients, workout building, And then that music just kind of naturally transitions me into, now I'm listening to my workout playlist and we're going to the gym or I'm going for a bike ride. So finding that consistency of flow. But then like sometimes that comes up against obstacles where if I have a longer day and I don't have time to go for a bike ride, like, okay, well, I know that I need to do my rehab. That's the bare minimum that I need to do for my physical like well-being. And so from there, I'll see if I can sprinkle in movements into my rehab. So yeah, music's a big cue. Moral of the story.
Nice. Music's big for me too. I'll go with non-lyrics usually. I'm pretty consistent on this one. So I'll go non-lyrics, binaural beats, and it's usually pretty upbeat and it has a consistent dum 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 dum.
Binaural beats.
Yeah. So it's basically just frequencies to help stimulate the brain in order for a specific outcome. So there's like theta, there's gamma, there's alpha, beta waves, and you can just listen to music, or you can listen to things to try to manipulate or try to invoke a particular state. So one that I'll go with is I'll just go with if it's in the morning and I'm chilling, then it'll be like chill hop, jazz beats, no lyrics, compilation, and they're all like hours long. They're like an hour long, some are 3 hours long. And when I have a specific work one where if it's admin stuff or if I'm just like going guns a-blazing on the computer, I'll put it on, put my earbuds on, and I'll put my phone further away from me so I don't have any distractions. And I'll just press play, and then I'll keep going until I either have a timer set. So Kyle, you are going to get 30 minutes of deep work done. Just press play, set the timer, it'll go off. Sometimes I won't even set an alarm, and I'm just dialed in. So the alarm is actually set so that it is it's my BAM. It's my bare ass minimum of work. And then if I go past that, then that's just bonus.
Checkpoint. Yeah.
And so it's binaural, it's beats that are meant to stimulate particular cognitive processes.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it's so nerdy going into that one. What was I going to ask? Actually, there was another point that I was going to say there. What is a tactic that you have implemented to change your state within the last 2 years, 1 to 2 years? What's something that's newer?
Even just like living in a small space, I would say is not necessarily a tactic, but we have noticed that it really doesn't, not forces in a bad way. Let's say encourages, because of like the resources that we have to choose from of a fairly compact fridge, a fairly compact pantry. We have to be very purposeful about what are we getting when we're grocery shopping. And so we choose to like make sure that we allow space for just like treats that we enjoy, but also like, okay, we also know that we want to get fruits and vegetables in. What does that look like in our fridge? Because we can only prep so much, we can only freeze so much, I can only chop so much on a counter space that's like is shorter than my arm span. And so that's kind of it's really made us have to get good at efficiency and very purposeful choice making. And so that's kind of led to that mindset seeping out into everything else that I do. If I'm going to get a library book, I have to think about, okay, can I actually finish this in a reasonable amount of time? Or is it just going to take up room on the very limited counter space that we have? Mm-hmm. If it's something that I want to return to time and time again, I'm going to want to buy it on Kindle so that I can make notes, so that I can highlight things. If it's just a fiction read, I'm going to get it from the library because I'm just going to read through it and move on, right? So yeah, just that efficiency of space and purposefulness of our space has been an interesting tactic to see out of living in the RV.
I really like that because then you have less clutter. And honestly, I think that when there's less clutter in the environment, there's less clutter in our mind. I think that definitely does ripple effect. I really like the concept of just being able to take care of your house and home and take care of yourself before you try to take care of others.
Yeah.
I think we try to take care of everything else around us, and then we end up miserable. Although it may seem like we are doing good for others, I also believe that, this is my own personal opinion, but I also believe that
it's your personal podcast. You can say it.
that's true. That is true. That's a good point. Yeah, I guess I can. Hey, yeah. Huh. Maybe I just needed a moment of permission giving, and you just gave it. Now it's just going to be off the rails. It's just going to be something
There you go.
ridiculous. But I think that when we are not mindful about our own minds, and we are not mindful about ourselves, and we are not mindful about our house and home and taking care of those, and we put our stuff to the side in order to help others, and it's perpetual, so people do it over and over and over again. I've kind of, my narrative that I've switched up is that the only way to help others is to help yourself, and then it ripples outwards from there. And if you find yourself consistently putting others first, or you have a non-functioning narrative or opinion that you are obligated to do everything for everyone and nothing for yourself, I find that to be I find that to be training individuals to be dependent on you. So when other people are dependent on us, we indulge their dependence, we are training them to continue depending on us. I don't know where I was going with that one, but I thought I was gonna. Oh yeah, right, because it was taking care of the house and the home. So how is it that you create space for boundaries? There we go.
Ooh. That question ties in really nicely to a thought that I was having as you were speaking on your personal opinion there.
Boom, double whammy.
And I think one of the big boundaries that has, like, especially in a house that the bedroom is connected to the living room, like both physical boundaries and just like boundaries in interpersonal relationships with others. My wife and I have talked a lot about me and we tasks, and being able to not necessarily categorize all of them in a definitive way, because sometimes they can bleed into each other a little bit. But like when I walk, that is a me task. Doing the dishes is a we task. Like, and so there is no complete ownership of that. There's a porous boundary between those things of, like, we have to make sure that that is kept up, because it is something that impacts the both of us. It impacts my workflow when I can see dirty dishes, which I can right now. When I can see dirty dishes in my, I have a kitchen in my office. But so being able to make sure that we both support each other in that pursuit, right? Versus, making sure that we have a firmer boundary around. It's funny, I'm trying to think of like a firm boundary between my wife and I can't think of one, because living in an RV doesn't really allow them. But like that idea of, I want to go for a walk each day. So there are days when I'll make sure to invite Sarah and be like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk in 30 minutes. Do you want to join me for that? And if she says no, that doesn't mean I don't go for a walk. Like, I still have a boundary within myself that says, okay, well, I'm going to go for a walk. And she knows that it's something that really fills me up and helps me get through my workday faster, so that I can do dishes later. Like, and so being able to support the other person's boundaries, while being able to know them and accept them, is key. And so, yeah, I think that
was a gooder.
That kind of answered.
Yeah, absolutely. I also liked how you have the categories of me and we. I actually found that, and I say this to a couple people. It's been a pretty consistent kind of thing that I've brought up. But when we shift the perspective from the me to the we, so when we go from self-centered to serving, because I find for myself, at least, I found that I was always thinking of the me, more self-centered. How is it that things are happening to me, or I want this for me? And I found that when I shifted from the me to the we, I created better internal boundaries where I find that when I have a vision of being encouraging and being a contributor to the human race, that's one of my own little philosophy, my little life mission thing, then I get to focus on how I can take care of myself in order to show up that way. So I find, so with that shift from me to we that I had, I was able to go from perpetuating the misery of my existence that was my own fault, and then shift it to a point of how can I show up as a badass motherfucker so that other people can also be badass motherfuckers. And I don't think I'm a badass motherfucker. I think I'm just an average guy trying to live an extraordinary life.
Yeah. That's there's an interesting couple of thoughts that come to mind there. One of them is my wife has an English major, so she's really good with words. I don't, and so I'm less good. I don't speak as good as her, right? But one of the things that she's helped me identify is those like neutral statements sometimes of like, oh, I didn't remember that. That's a neutral statement versus like, I didn't pay attention enough to that is an ownership of choice, or I chose to do this instead is an owned is an owned statement. And so that was an interesting thought that kind of helps with the me's and the we's conversations, and that idea of, am I being self-centered or others-centered, self-serving, others-serving, that mentality of is there neutrality in the action that I'm taking, which sometimes there has to be neutrality. But like kind of to that point of being a badass motherfucker. And one of the things that, especially over the last, like, it popped up from time to time. We're going to get into imposter syndrome a little bit here. But that idea of, like, in the grand scheme of things, putting value into like personal training and coaching and kind of grappling with is the action that I'm taking every day really benefiting the world at large? And so one of the cool things over the last, even just like the last couple months, that I've kind of come to anchor upon is, especially in the atmosphere of nerd fitness, where the people that we serve and the clientele that we serve are the nerds of the world, and it's a beautiful place to be, and it's a supportive place and a loving place to be. And one of the really cool things that I've come back to every day is, through the work that I and we do and that you do with your people, truly tangentially, it's that idea that we are helping people to be stronger, to be more aware of their choices, to be able to self-advocate, and to be able to, self-advocate verbally, physically, mentally, and to be able to set boundaries, to be able to really ascertain the actions that mean the most for them, and then to be able to say, like, okay, I'm not going to go to that gym because it's toxic and it makes me feel like shit, and I deserve better than that. So instead, I'm going to do the body weight workout that my coach has worked with me on, that helps me feel good and feel good doing it. And so it's just become a kind of that mantra of how can I do epic shit to help other people do epic shit, and to be able to take care of themselves and the people that they love as much as possible.
You'd absolutely love that.
Yeah.
All right, you dropped a lot of knowledge bombs today, my man. Like it's a very, very, very insightful conversation. And I'm sure that we will have a part 2 at some point in time.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Especially when I eventually get to the point where it's in person, traveling, going, hanging out with cool people. That's the dream. That's the dream right there. That's the vision that I see for my future so far, is having that. And then traveling was just kind of a component that we already have as our vision. The traveling podcasting part was just like a bonus. But maybe I'll have like a Steve-O style van where it's just like freaking podcast in the back or something like that.
I'm Kyle Smith. Welcome to Jackass.
Yeah, exactly. So my man, where can people find you?
So my Instagram is it's at Just Get Sweaty. That's me. That was kind of my mantra before Do Epic Shit, but I'm guessing Instagram doesn't want me to be at just Do Epic Shit. Yeah, that's me. You can see me on the Nerd Fitness channel from time to time. You'll see this bald face coming up from time to time. But yeah, at Just Get Sweaty is pretty much the place.
Beautiful. Well, I got 2 final questions for you, my friend.
Bring it.
Even though I've given you've answered so many questions in such an amazing way. And I just want to say, man, like you have such a good vibe. You bring great energy. I'm sure your clients love you. And I think you're a swell fella, even if they don't. So
thank you.
In saying that, my man, thank you very much for being on this podcast. I appreciate it a ton. It's super exciting to be able to, 6 years after meeting you during the toughest mutter, and now being able to like chat with you across the country is truly a treat. And I very much appreciate it. So going into the questions, the final questions, First one, setting the context, real dark.
Bring it.
You're on your deathbed, my friend. There is no content that exists. This podcast does not exist. You're on your deathbed. The people around you, they love you. They support you. You have one piece of advice that you can give them. What is it?
And it can't be like and subscribe because content doesn't exist anymore. Like and subscribe. I think I would probably say something to the effect of like, just have fun and no one else really cares. And that can be a great thing. That can be a bad, at this point, it's probably my last statement, but like the further context is that idea that like, it's that idea of when you go to the gym and you think everyone's watching you, they aren't. If they are, it's probably me, and I'm probably going, it's a good squat. Nice. Like, no one else is watching you. No one cares, and just go do that beautiful thing that you want to do and have fun.
I love that. I love that you said that beautiful thing. That is so good. I love that, man. Second question, the final question, the best version of you, the best Andrew, the Andrew that you envision in the future that is absolutely crushing it. Time travels back in time, stands right next to you or sits right next to you and says, gives you one piece of advice for the season of living you're in currently. What is that piece of advice that future Andrew gives you, or a higher version of yourself?
Yeah. Because I'm who I am, I have to make a joke about like they have hair plugs in the future. But no, the real answer, I think I jokingly said it earlier, but my brain's kind of instinctually coming back to it now. Take a walk. Stand up, go take a walk. Like there's a reason your back is sore. It's because you've been sitting all day. And it's funny that when we started our conversation, I thought I would have a different answer, and I don't remember what it is now. Like the answer that's resonating is go take a walk. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, folks,
and like at that point they probably have hoverboards. So for him to say like take a walk is going to be a weird thing, but you know, whatever. Say la vie.
That's totally legit, man. All right, folks. If you love today's episode, please do me a favor right now. Share it on your Instagram stories and tag me with my handle at Warrior Body Kyle, along with at Just Get Sweaty. This is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, I hope your day treats you as good as you look.